And a very good morning to you, ladies and gents. Hope you're all well. It's a bit of local history, industrial heritage and history with this one. We're in Canning Town at the moment, and the Canning Town flyover, and just in there amongst all this modern stuff you can see one of the old original bridges. Same as with this here, this is one of the original foot passage bridges, like footpath bridges, to get the workers across this, the River Lee. Looking down at Canning Town, Anchor House just there. A very changed landscape. We cross over here and you'll join me on the bank there. And here we are along the Leeway now. We've left the Blue Bridge, walked along here, and this is the River Lee, which slowly meanders its way all the way round and up there and into the Thames. And for the next part of our journey, you'll rejoin me when I've walked all the way over there to a real piece of local industrial heritage. Well, this entire area really was an industrial heartland. Had the crap bonded out of it in the war, and it's been redeveloped with a lot of it with the Docklands development and Park Nature Reserve, and a lot of the heritage has been saved. Our main ports of call for today, this is going to be two separate videos. The first one's going to be the site of the old Thames Ironworks, Samuda Brothers, just a lot of old shipbuilding companies that were there, ghost signs and that, and the East India Dock Bay. We'll be going there. There's a great little snippet of history there that I want to show you. And for our second location, it's going to be London's only lighthouse, the Trinity Buoy Lighthouse, which was never used as a functioning lighthouse as we think of them. It was only ever used to train Trinity House lighthousemen and to test new lighthouse lighting equipment. Yeah, here we can see the different phases of bridges. Many an old Plastovian and Canning Towner would have walked over these on their way to work in the morning and on their way back home, probably stopping in at one or two pubs on the way. But yeah, as I say, you will rejoin me all the way over there at the site of the Thames Ironworks, so join me in a moment for that. And here we are, looking at the O2 Arena and a very modern world behind me. But in this part of the journey, I'm going to take you in and out of this area's industrial heritage, in and out of the past, so to speak. And I hope you're all going to enjoy the journey with me. We see very much the modern world. This is called the Happy Hope Island, this area now. We're going to walk down this, across these cobblestones and down this little alleyway. So many people from Plaistow, Canning Town, Poplar and the surrounding areas would have travelled to and from here daily to work in this area. It was a massive employer, this area. As I say, this is phase one of our two-part series. And we come out onto Orchard Place. And where I will take you to in part two is all the way down there to Trinity Buoy Wharf. Our journey for this part is over here. Many companies came and went along this area. All along the wall here are history boards which I've photographed, so for those of you that are really into your history, there'll be photographs of those for you to read. Ditchburn and Maer Shipbuilders. I want you to bear that name in mind, please, for in a minute. Good Luck Hope Island, it's called. Not the Happy Hope Island, the Good Luck Hope Island. Oh my god, it sounds like a corny Indian restaurant, doesn't it? Let's look at this for a minute, sorry. Trinity Buoy Wharf. These boys, my dad, his first job when he was 15 was making these buoys at a company called R.J. Mitchell Engineering in 1971, aged 15. So that's a little blast from my own family's past. What I want to show you here is another one of our ghost signs, and there's a good couple of them around. Mathers Whale Oil Extraction. They were first given license to extract and boil whale oil down in the London docks in 1790. Come the 1810s and 20s, they were forced to move that unpleasant business further east here. Trinity Buoy Wharf pointing down that way. And our next building of interest, and a very old one as well. One of the old survivors around here, reutilised into the modern world as apartments nowadays. And with another ghost sign. The Good Luck Hope car park. And we shall cross over. And here is our old building. In a minute you shall see another ghost sign. Great little piece of this area's history and heritage. Interesting company too, which we shall take a look at. First I shall take you to here, so I'm going to pause you a sec. There we are, that's better, isn't it? Samuda Brothers Limited, Shipbuilding and Engineering, established in 1832, and they first came here in the 1840s, I believe. So another great old ghost sign. And where we're going to now, let's point you down a moment, is East India Dock Basin. But before we go there, sorry. These gates do look as though they've been ripped to shreds, but they are actually designed like that. Where I'm taking you to first is the site of the Thames Ironworks, shipbuilder and engineer. Now, you remember I said to you to bear the name Ditchburn and Maer in mind. Ditchburn and Maer is the company that first founded what would later on become the Thames Ironworks on this spot in 1837. The Thames Ironworks, of course, being most famously known for being the birthplace of the West Ham Football Club, which it would become. A massive employer, this one. I had two of my own relatives work in here. My nan Liz, her granddad John Edwin Price, 1865 to 1952. He worked here when he was a young man in his 20s. On my dad's side of the family, my other great-great-grandfather, Charles Lee, or Charlie as he was known, 1856 to 1918, he worked here when he was in his late 20s, early 30s. He then went on to the docks and became a gas fireman. So we've had a look at these ghost signs and these three businesses in our own time. Should we zip back off into the past and have a look and see what the history is? And I'll start us off with our earliest business, Mather's Whale Oil Extraction. Mathers & Co. were three brothers. James Mather, born in 1738, died in 1796. James Mather began in the early 1770s trading with North America during the American War of Independence, chartered storeships for the Royal Navy. When he died, his three sons continued in that business until 1803. The next brother was Thomas Mather, born circa 1736, and he died in 1798. Thomas Mather was a mariner in the whaling business and a member of the London Corporation in 1800. And the last brother, John Mather, who died in 1802. John Mather was a mariner in the whaling business and a member of the London Corporation in 1800. The brothers operated from their premises at Orchard Place, which we've just seen, from 1790 to 1815. They began in commerce in contracting for the British Royal Navy. They became the owners of whaling ships, and between them at one time or another were the owners of some 29 vessels that engaged in the British southern whale fishery between 1775 and 1815. It was a revolting and cruel and horrible process, the whaling business, and it near rendered some species of whales extinct, and it may have rendered some of them completely extinct. But how it was done is they would go out and harpoon the whales and kill them, and then take them back to the ship. The blubber and bones and the useful things that were needed were butchered down either at the side of the ship itself or taken to one of the little whale blubber islands and dealt with like that. And the extracted things that were of use were brought back to the docks, like East India Dock here, which is literally just a stone throw away from Mather's. So, conveniently for them, it wouldn't have had to travel too far, the whale blubber. And it wasn't just the oil and things that was used. Bones were used for corsets and all sorts. And we see here, the ship arrives at the dock. And some of the things that the oil was used for was broadcloth manufacture, oil in the cloth, and also for making waterproof cloth as well in those days, like oilskins and things like that. And watch and clock manufacturer as a good lubricating oil. As we can see from this delightfully PC advertisement, advertising watch and clock oils with a shed load of dead whales just laying there. And here is a specimen of Mather's oil. The oil was extracted from sperm whales. That was believed to be the best oil, particularly for lighting because it burned the brightest. And on the subject of lighting, after the candle lantern and before the gaslight came these. These were the street lights of the Georgian to early-ish Victorian era. Before gaslights came in, these hung in the streets, and they would be filled with whale oil and lit each evening, and they would light the streets, but they stank and they smoked something chronic. And in the home you would have this. Much brighter than a candle, but of course very smelly. Of the 29 ships that Mathers owned, the most famous one was the Lord Sandwich, formerly the Endeavour, which was a British Royal Navy research vessel that the famous Captain James Cook commanded to Tahiti, New Zealand and Australia on his first voyage of discovery from 1768 to 1771. The ship, an amazing piece of history to us, wasn't much valued at the time for what it was, and was sold off fairly soon afterwards, and came into the possession of the Mather brothers in March 1775, and was given the name change from Endeavour to the Lord Sandwich then. It wasn't in their possession for long though. She was scuttled in a blockade in the Narragansett Bay, Rhode Island in 1778, a victim of the American War of Independence. Historical evidence indicates that the ship was sunk just north of Goat Island in Newport Harbour, along with 4 other British ships. And that's the Mathers. And on to our next business. Another one of the early ones, the Samuda Brothers. Founded in 1832. Samuda Brothers, founded by brothers Jacob Samuda and Joseph de Aguilar Samuda. They initially leased a premises on Goodluck Hope Peninsula, Leamouth, that we're looking at here, London in 1832, by the mouth of Bow Creek. However, disaster struck with one of their first ships, the Gypsy Queen, which exploded on its test trip in November 1844. Jacob was killed with 9 of the firm's employees. There was another explosion at their shipyard in 1845 and another 3 workers killed. And here we're looking at the surviving brother, Joseph de Aguilar Samuda. And here we see the Samuda explosion of 1845. Credit to the National Maritime Museum for this image. Joseph de Aguilar Samuda, Vanity Fair, 1873. As you can see, he'd gone up in the world by this time, and by this time he was in government as well. February 1873. And they were responsible for such things as the Waterloo and Whitehall Railway, which only ran for a very, very short period of 1865 to 1867. Like the Tower Subway, it flopped. The firm moved to Cubitt Town in 1852, having outgrown a site that was hemmed in by other industrial premises. By this time, the company was run by Joseph, Jacob having been killed in the trial of the Gypsy Queen. The Cubitt Town yard specialised in iron and steel warships, steam packets, and by 1863 was said to be producing double the output of other London shipyards combined. And now, last but most definitely not least, Ditchburn and Mayer Shipbuilders, who were the original founders of the Thames Ironworks, which we see the old site of here. The Thames Ironworks and Shipbuilding Engineering Company Limited was founded in 1837 by shipbuilders Thomas Ditchburn and naval architect Charles Mayer as Ditchburn and Mayer Shipbuilding Company, then C.J. Mayer and Company. The shipyards were first at Deptford and then moved to Orchard Place, which we see the site of here. They were one of the first builders of iron ships. They built several warships for the Admiralty, including HMS Warrior, also included the construction and linings and metalworks for the Blackwall Tunnel. the warships being built in 1902. Thames Ironworks, London, 1908, we see it here. Which is around about the date that the construction of the Rotherhithe Tunnel began, on which they supplied a lot of the ironwork and tunnel linings and things for that too. And shipbuilding, what they were most famous for. The ironworks closed in 1912, unable to compete with the northern shipyards. The Thames Ironworks FC later became West Ham United FC, the most famous London club, or one of the most famous London football clubs around, and with a really good history, which we're going to examine now. So pause to read the descriptive histories if you like. Here's one of the earliest images of the Thames Ironworks team, 1897. And I hope you all found that interesting. And now I shall drag us kicking and screaming back into the present. Well, I hope you all found that barbarically interesting. And our next port of call. East India Dock Basin, the largest remaining surviving, most original part really of the East India Dock. Work was begun in 1803 and complete by 1806 as an import dock for the East India Company. When that later became extant, I think it was in 1832, this basically became an import and export dock for all trades. Finally ceased operation in 1967. Nowadays it's part of the Lee Valley Park, and this area here has been turned into a salt marsh nature reserve. looking over towards London's industrial quarter, where you have the very new mingled with the very old, what we're going to look at now, one of the original entrance gates into the docks, what remains of it. I like this area because it does mingle past and present, and a little bit of our own past from our own lifetimes as well, what we're going to see in a minute. Did you, ladies or gents, have any ancestors that worked in Thames Ironworks? Went extant in 1912. My nan's grandfather and my granddad's granddad, they were both at the Royal Victoria Docks by that time. Charlie, he died in his 60s, and my nan's granddad, he lived to 85. He died quite an old man. They kept him on when he was old, running jobs and bringing tea and things like that, because he was well liked, until 1947. There was no pension scheme, don't forget. When that came in, he was a very pleased man. He went to my nan, "Here, Lizzie, look." His first pension money. Couldn't believe his luck. And holidays with pay and all that kind of thing. My nan absolutely idolised her granddad, so I know quite a lot about him. When he was a young man, he was in his teens, when he first left school, which was 12 in those days. He was apprenticed at him and his brother, Arthur William. They were apprenticed out to a fisherman at Woolwich. That obviously didn't work out because Arthur William ended up moving to Australia, and John Edwin, he ended up going into the shipbuilding trade first and then the docks. He named his, John Edwin named his firstborn son after his brother, Arthur William, and that Arthur William, firstborn son, is my nan's dad. And here we are. British Gas. This giant beacon was one of a chain of 1,400 beacons which were lit across the country, beginning in the Scottish Isles and moving down the country to Edinburgh, Belfast, Cardiff and London, commemorating the new millennium of the year 2000. That's what I said. That's what I like about this area, that it mingles past and present and some of our own past as well. And what I'm going to show you now, I find bloody interesting. Now, in our old empire days, should we say, and when we were at war with the French and the Spanish and goodness knows who else, when we captured their ships, we often captured their cannons. And sometimes those cannons, taking different sized cannonballs to ours, weren't much use for warfare. But to rub their noses in it, we utilised them for certain things. There's one in London, there's a couple in London actually, that are used as street bollards. And there's this one here that we're just going to have a look at now. Nowadays used as a receptacle for cigarette butts and bubblegum and stuff, but a captured cannon nonetheless, put here in the old days and used as a mooring point for ships. Whether it's French or Spanish or not, I've not been able to ascertain. Just over there is where we started our journey. Watch down there. We've come round and into here. The views are lovely from here, I'll say that. I'll get you there and then I'll give you a slow sweep along. See way off into the distance. Like an old church on that hill there, quite a big one as well. rocket boat tours. You can go on one of those and they rocket you up and down the Thames. I, being no good sailor, couldn't think of anything more horrifying. The cable cars, which will take you over from the Royal Victoria Docks, over that way, all the way over to the O2 Arena, which I still cannot get out of the habit of calling the Millennium Dome. And they'll pop you in there, the cable cars. And the Millennium Dome, or O2 Arena, when it first went up, a lot of people poo-pooed it and said it wouldn't be up for 10 years or more. And it still stands and still being used today. And still drawing revenue into London as well, so it's a win-win situation, I suppose. Here we look at London's financial district, or financial quarter. Canary Wharf and Citibank, HSBC, it's all there. And lots of new housing, flats and apartments, which folk need to be housed, so what can you do? These old mooring points as well. And those ones there. And what I shall show you now is these lock gates. They are very original and old, not to the 1803 era, but they were refurbished in 1995 to 1997, East India Dock Basin, and you see them holding in and keeping out the might of Father Thames. And just over here, what I like are these very old tide markers done in Roman numerals, and this wall here and these stones, they are early, and you can see with the ridges there from the original early wooden lock gates that would have been here. The bridge is closed at the moment, this one. You can cross over the next bridge, which is just over here. There's the other set of lock gates just there. And here. These grids in the floor under there are old workings for opening this lot up. It's been many and many a year since these opened. I think they closed in 1967, and that was probably the last time they were opened. Oh, I can smell weed. Sorry. Well, I can. Someone's smoking weed, I can smell it. It's all you smell in London now. Here we look out onto Old Father Thames and the modern day East India Dock Basin. All its industrial heritage long gone and long ceased. But what would this have looked like and been like in its industrial heritage and past? Shall we? Here we see the East India Docks looking south towards the River Thames in 1806 when it was newly opened. Look at the old sailing ships there. A completely different world to what we see today. The East India Dock Basin is the largest remaining part of the early 19th century East India Docks complex. Now owned by the Lee Valley Regional Park Authority, it has been identified as a site to be enhanced to fulfill its potential as a heritage resource and also as a nature reserve. The East India Company was founded in the year 1600 and came to be a powerful trading company that essentially established British rule in India during the 18th and 19th century. The company docked at Blackwall for many years, and in 1804-6 a large dedicated dock was built by the engineer John Rennie, who we see here, and the architect Ralph Walker, who we see here, for the company's trade. The East India Company had sole use of the dock until 1833, when they were disbanded, and from then on the East India Docks were used for all trades. The dock and basin gradually extended, and a new locks were built, but by the 20th century it saw the decline of the Docklands. Here we see it in 1836 how much it had expanded. The East India Import-Export Dock in 1843. East India Dock entrance gates in 1890. You can still see a lot of the older sail-masted ships there. A very, very busy world. 1902 Union Castle liners in East India Dock. D.L.Z. Graf Zeppelin over the East India Docks in 1931, so we get an aerial shot. A World War II aerial shot of the export-import basin, still in use at that time. And as I said, the dock and basin gradually extended and new locks were built, but in the 20th century it saw the decline of the London Docklands. In East India Dock closed in 1967. The import and export docks were gradually filled, and new houses and residential and office blocks were put in their place. The basin was turned into a nature reserve by the London Docklands Development Corporation and has been in the ownership of Lee Valley Regional Park Authority since 1998. So that's a little of its history, and we've seen some photographic history of it as we're seeing here, but I think we can do a little smidge better than that, can't we? So off we go for that. That was a lot of history to digest, wasn't it? Hope you all found that interesting, and hope it wasn't too much to digest. I do hear tell that overstimulation can have a terrible effect upon the digestive systems of the old, or those of a nervous disposition. And I've dragged us kicking and screaming back into the modern world because I love this sign. I photographed this, so don't worry, it will probably appear as a group photograph on my page. And I end this part off pretty much where we began, just down that little alleyway there. That's where we began, and where we shall be off to for the next part of our journey, which is part 2, is all the way down this very modern looking street to Trinity Buoy Wharf. So that's the next phase of our journey on this industrial history trail. Hope you're all enjoying this series. Join me for the next one.